What's going on, everybody? Welcome into first round of the playoffs. It's week 11. Stadium Drive is here in West Lafayette at Ridgewood High School, and the Ridgewood Generals are taking on the Mechanicsburg Indians in Division 6 OHSAA playoff football. It's the number 3 seed versus the number 14 seed. Will Ford here with you with Storied Rivals Sports Media, and thanks so much for joining us live on Facebook, X, and YouTube all season long through 10 weeks of regular season play, and now it's week 1 of the postseason. And we have yet to see or be at a game for the Ridgewood Generals this year. Not Mechanicsburg team. I think we might have lost you here for a second. Let me get us back. I think we lost you. The internet here in West Lafayette, maybe not the best, but that's all right. We keep it rolling. But Ridgewood, like I was saying, 9-1, a win against Garaway last week in Week 10, the first time since 2020 that they've done that. Garaway finishes 8-2 on the year. Both teams miss out on the IVC championship. Indian Valley, they win the IVC. And now a Mechanicsburg team in the Ohio Heritage Conference, 7-3 on the season. This is their 12th straight postseason appearance. Got a chance to talk to both coaches from both schools, John Slusser of Ridgewood, who's been at this for over 20 years, and every year, it just seems like year after year, this program, this team, it's always really, really good, and maybe better than Coach Slusser makes out to be. They have a fantastic squad this year. We'll talk to Coach Slusser here in a moment, but we also talked to Kurt Forrest of Mechanicsburg, a Mechanicsburg native, went to Mechanicsburg High School, and he has a very interesting backstory that we'll talk about with him here in a few minutes. But super exciting to be here. Playoff football, there's a little bit of a nip in the air. It's a little cool. I'm going to go put my hoodie on here after this show. The sun's coming down. What a time for high school football. We'll go into other playoff matchups for teams that we cover in our coverage area near the end of the show to let you know, in what divisions, what regions, what playoff games are happening that we're going to be at tonight. But we're here at Ridgewood, Mechanicsburg. That'll get started here at 7 o'clock, and we'll have highlights for you throughout the game on X. So make sure you follow us there throughout the evening. But let's start with the Ridgewood Generals and talking to head coach John Slusser. Like I said, he's been at this for a really long time. It's a 9-1 team. Just an outstanding season. A stretch early in the year where they didn't allow any offensive points from any of the teams that they played, through the first 3 or 4 weeks of the year. Played outstanding. Their only loss to Indian Valley, who won the IVC. And, Coach Slusser talks about how good his quarterback, Grant Lahmers, has been, especially last week against Garaway with nearly 200 yards rushing, with a lot of quarterback run, a pick six as well. They were able to defeat Garaway for the first time since 2020, but also prep for this Mechanicsburg team, which he believes, it's not the most favorable draw as a 3 seed in Division 6 to take on this Indian squad. He thinks that they're actually pretty evenly matched, although the seeds are 3 and 14. But I'll let John Slusser talk about it with you on Stadium Drive, Week 11. Thanks for being here for the first round of the playoffs. And here is Coach Slusser with the Ridgewood Generals. All right. Well, John Slusser, Ridgewood Football, is joining us ahead of Week 11, the first round of the playoffs this week. And thanks for being here, Coach. I appreciate your time. And the last time we spoke was actually in the preseason before this great year that you had. You finished the regular season 9-1, and you closed out with an awesome 22-14 win over Garaway, a team that you hadn't beaten since 2020. And obviously they were a Final Four finisher last year. But what is a win like that? Given how good Garaway's been the last couple of years, and what does that mean for you and your team to finish 9-1, but beat a great team like that?
Those wins are always great. Anytime you beat your rival, and obviously, like you said, they've been so good lately. If they weren't as good a program as they are, the win wouldn't mean as much, right? That's a credit to them. Jason was telling me before the game, we were talking about stuff, and he was saying, it's the first time in a while that championship implications weren't involved in it because Indian Valley had already won the league. I said, boy,
Sure.
it still feels that way to me because you've beaten us 3 years in a row. When you lose to your rival 3 years in a row, it's good to win anytime you can. So I think it was a relief for our kids. I was a relief for me. We needed that. We needed to beat them again sometime. And they've just been so good lately. It's not been an easy task.
Yeah, absolutely. But one guy that certainly helped you get the win, it seemed like in every facet on offense and defense, was Grant, your quarterback. He had 2 rushing touchdowns. He was excellent running the football. I mean, 174 yards on the ground on 32 carries, 2 touchdowns, but he had a pick 6 too. I mean, he did everything. I mean, obviously he's been with the program, for 4 years, but what was his effort? Like, what did you see with his effort on Friday against Garaway?
um, if you know Grant, that's just what he does every week. He's very straight across the board. He doesn't get too high, he doesn't get too low. Um, he's just a kid that shows up and plays his rear end off. He has all year long, every game we've played. Um, like all the seniors on our team, he hadn't beaten Garaway in high school, so he was probably a little more excitable after the game. But he's such a good kid. He comes from a good family. He played tremendous. He did. He played tremendous. But I'd be lost in it all if I didn't say, our offensive line did a nice job for him, and Sparger and Tolliver in front of him did a really nice job blocking for him all night. So it was a game that we needed. And I was really proud of our kids.
Yeah, yes. Your backs also had 70 yards each on the ground too. That really contributed. But I want to move to this Week 11 game in the first round of the playoffs because you've got Mechanicsburg. They were 7-3 in the Ohio Heritage Conference, and a team that I feel like is pretty balanced as far as running the football and throwing the football. But it seems like they're much better of a throwing team. Their quarterback Conley Bogard was second in the conference in passing. They have 2 of the top 3 receiving leaders in their conference, and Haynes, and Chris Ritchie, combining for like 1,400 yards receiving. When you look at the film and as you get ready for Mechanicsburg and trying to defend what they do on offense, but with their quarterback and those 2 receivers I mentioned, what do you see and how do you prepare for matching up against what those guys do?
It's been a lot of work. They do a really good job of spreading the ball out to different people. They do a lot of good scheme. Their coach does a good job with that. They're able to hide 27 a lot of times and get him with big plays. The 13, like you talked about, I don't know names, I just know numbers, but 13,
sure,
makes big plays. I'm concerned. Like we didn't think that was a great draw in the tournament for a 3 seed. I think we got a team that's very comparable to us. Seems like they play a lot like us. I think they're physical kids. I like the way they come off on double teams on the buck and the kick out. I think their backs are big and they run hard. The number 15 and number 35. They scare us a lot because I think they're pretty good. I think it's going to be a heck of a matchup. We're telling our kids it may be the best team we play in the tournaments. We may get them week 1 because they just do a lot of things well, and they've had a lot of success, probably more so than we have in their program. So it's not a great draw for us. The good thing is we're at home, and hopefully that excites us and we play well. We don't always play like we did last week, just so you know. That was we don't have that patent where we play that well every week. We've played some really good games this year, but we've played some stinkers too. So hopefully we get a good one this week.
Well, I would say from the outside looking in, at least from my perspective, you guys have played some pretty good football all year. I mean, that early stretch to start the year where you guys didn't allow any points, that was, it's pretty impressive, and you guys have had a pretty good year. But on the defensive side of the ball for Mechanicsburg, one of their lead backs that you mentioned, but he plays on the defensive line. Ronnie Thomas has 9.5 sacks, and he's just a really big disruptor just on the D line. And obviously, running the football is kind of your calling card. It's your game. What do you throw a double team at him to kind of limit his impact? What do you do to sort of work around just their defensive front in general? But really, Ronnie, who has been a disruptor for
Mechanicsburg all year?
Coach Cabot handles the offensive side, and he does very well with that. So I try not to mess him up too much. But listen, they're probably going to get what we've given all year. They're going to get a lot of quarterback run. We really think Aiden Sparger's a really good player, so they're going to get some of him. They're going to get our skill guys who we think are pretty good on the edge. And, we got locked down last week where we were just so good at running the football and we were able to do some things, but we think we throw the ball all right. We definitely have weapons out there. We try to be a balance. Now, it turned out the other night we were just able to run and run and run.
Sure.
That's what we did. But I think we'll do what we do. I don't think we're going to change for this game anything that we've done. We'll line up and do the things that Ridgewood football, things we've done the past 20 years. So from that standpoint, I look for us to be who we are. Defensively worries me more than maybe offensively because I think they're really good on that side of the ball. All year long we've been great against the run. That's usually, what our calling card's been over 20 years. But I can't help but go back to the Indian Valley game and see a guy rush for 370 against us. And I'm going to tell you, it causes me some PTSD from that game. Defensively, I took a little swag off of you when you give up that many yards to someone. And every game we kick off, I keep thinking, well, this guy's going to rush for 370 against us. So even though we've only lost one game, that one game was brutal from a defensive end, and it's left some scars that I haven't forgotten yet.
I wouldn't, get too down about giving up 370 to Ivy's Grady Kinsey, because I feel like he did that to every team this year, and he's the second leading rusher in the entire country. So I feel like you're not the only one in that boat.
He's a good player. My gosh, he's a good player.
Yeah, without a doubt. But we're really excited to be at this game on Friday, Coach, and watch you guys take on 9-1, near the top of the IVC, and you beat your rival Garaway for the first time in a few years. So exciting stuff with you and the Generals. But thanks so much for hopping on and talking some football, man, for 8 to 10 minutes. And it's always a pleasure to talk to you. And best of luck against Mechanicsburg, but also throughout your entire playoff run.
Well, I appreciate it. I think it'll be one of the best games in the region to watch. I think both teams are real competitive. I think it'll be a great football game. And it's always fun to watch a game at Ridgewood anyhow. So it'll be a good night one way or the other, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I'll be there doing our pregame show to hype you guys up, and also just give some love to Mechanicsburg because they've been a solid team this year, but certainly to you guys as a team that we cover. It's been great to follow you guys this year.
I appreciate it very much. You guys have a great day.
For the first time in his career and for the first time in 3 years, Grant Lahmers and the Ridgewood Generals conquered the Garaway Pirates 22-14 in Week 10, and Lahmers did it all on offense and on defense, but he carried the ball 32 times for a whopping 174 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, including the one to seal the game, and also a pick 6 on the defensive side of the ball. Did everything for the Pirates, for the Generals against the Pirates, and he's going to have to do some more tonight against this Mechanicsburg Indians football team that's 7-3. And just to give you some insight on Mechanicsburg, they are a pretty balanced team offensively. They can throw it with the best in the Ohio Heritage Conference, but they're also a decent running team as well. And just to give you an idea, their 2024 season stats, their quarterback Conley Bogard, almost 2,000 yards passing, 22 passing touchdowns to just 8 interceptions, and he is the number 2 passer in the Ohio Heritage Conference in terms of yardage. And then his leading receiver, Austin Haynes, 42 catches on the year, 783 receiving yards, 8 touchdowns, and he's the number 2 receiver in the OHC in terms of receiving yardage. But also, Mechanicsburg has the number 3 receiver in the Ohio Heritage Conference as well. Chris Ritchie, 38 catches, 657 receiving yards, and 7 touchdowns. So they have 2 guys that can, stretch the field, do things in space for the Indians. and they can certainly move it through the air, but to also just give you some numbers on their rushing attack, because their running game is pretty decent as well. They've got two guys. They also have another quarterback that can run as well. But two of their backs, Denver Caudill, has 504 yards, 4 touchdowns this season. Ronnie Thomas, who also plays on the defensive side of the ball, has 9.5 sacks through 10 games. Ronnie has 480 yards rushing, 6 touchdowns. So, almost 1,000 yards between those two backs, 10 touchdowns. So they don't necessarily have a premier guy in the backfield, but they have dudes that can run the football along with another quarterback that can come in and give defenses some different looks. And talking to head coach Kurt Forrest, who has a really interesting story, went to Mechanicsburg, was a water boy for this football team, way back in the day, as a third grader. Played for this team, was a quarterback and a linebacker on the first ever playoff team in Mechanicsburg's program history, and ended up becoming the head coach of this program. And now they're embarking on their 12th consecutive playoff appearance. And it's pretty remarkable, his story, but also just how good this Mechanicsburg team is. And I think this is going to be, and you heard Coach Slusser say it a few minutes ago, I think it's going to be one of the better games in the region here tonight. A 3 seed versus a 14 seed, you look on paper and you're like, like Ridgewood should win on paper, right? But people don't see it that way at all. People see this as a pretty evenly matched game between two really good teams. And here is head coach Kurt Forrest breaking down this matchup, but also reflecting on his journey, his story, as he gets ready to take on another Week 11, another playoff run, and the Ridgewood Generals. Here's Kurt Forrest, Mechanicsburg Indians head coach, Stadium Drive, Week 11, live on Facebook, X, and YouTube.
Kurt Forrest is joining us, Mechanicsburg Indians football going into Week 11. It's the first round of the playoffs, and I really appreciate you taking time out of your morning, Coach, to join us on a podcast for a few minutes. But wanted to talk some football with you and this matchup with Ridgewood. But before we get into that game, I do think that your story is pretty interesting because, Mechanicsburg is the school that you went to. You were a water boy for the football team when you were in grade school, in the 3rd grade. You were a quarterback and a linebacker for the program's first ever playoff team back in 1999. You were an assistant from 04 to 06. But now as the head coach, this team it's embarking on its 12th straight playoff appearance. When you enter Week 11 of the playoffs, it seems like year after year, do you think about those moments from the past when you were in school, growing up, playing, for the Indians, and just all of those special moments as you embark on each season and go into Week 11 and the playoffs?
Yeah, I think it's real easy to get caught up in the daily grind of being the head coach and doing those things, and I think the key word we're looking for here is a perspective of being able to see the program through all eyes and everybody's eyes that's attached to it. And sometimes when you're have some of those long work days and you're dragging a little bit, is to step back out and look at it through that water boy's eyes, and look at it through the senior quarterback linebacker guy who they're getting ready to play the first playoff game in school history. To look at it through all different perspectives, to the young assistant coach that's excited to get to coach in his first playoff game, and to go through those things and to realize that, like, just because I've been here for forever and a day now, that it's different for everybody, and there's a lot of first times for a lot of people too. And a neat thing for myself this year is, my son is now in 2nd grade, and now he's on the ball boy and the water boy and doing all those kinds of things and loving life. And to kind of see that come full circle is, that also re-energizes me too. So I think it's really important to look at it and have perspective from everybody's eyes. And, they say to ever run a business, you need to be able to do every job in the business. Well, I've held every job in the business from water boy to player to assistant coach to now head coach. So I've done it all, and I have to remember the excitement that comes with all of that sometimes when you get caught up in the work of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when you look at this season, 2 wins in a row to close the regular season, and that was following 2 losses in a row. With these last 2 wins against Northeastern and Triad, do you think do you think your team's playing its best football now as you go into Week 11?
Yeah, I do. I really do, and I think we've gotten better each week. The 2 losses in the middle of the season is kind of some fun stats that I didn't even know about, and until those losses kind of happened. It was our first back-to-back regular season losses since 2012, and
Wow.
yeah, exactly. I didn't know that either. And it was our first home regular season loss since like October 4th of 2019. So there was, it kind of makes you step back and be like, man, I guess we're doing some things right, every now and again around here. But this year's team, I think, has gotten a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better. Um, the 2 losses in the middle, we gave up 14 points to the opponent on offense. Like we had 2 pick-sixes against Fairbanks, and then we had 2 fumble returns for touchdowns in the first half against West Liberty. So I would love to see, what happened, in those games without that. But, if ifs and buts were candy and nuts, it'd be Christmas every day. Um, so we have to learn from those mistakes and get better. So playing clean football, has to be at the top of the list. And that's where all those cliches that people get sick and tired of hearing come from, because it's true. It's real. Win the turnover battle, win the battle of the trenches, a block tackle, take care of the football. Like that's how you win football games. And sometimes that gets boring to talk about, but it's true.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like Week 11 is going to be no different because you're going up against a Ridgewood team that runs the football very well. Their quarterback last week against Garaway, and that's the first time they had beaten Garaway in a few years. They were a Final Four team last year. Their quarterback had 174 yards rushing on 32 carries. He had 2 touchdowns, and their 2 backs as well had 70 yards rushing. I think the team as a whole had 250 plus yards rushing. So they run it well. They can throw it, but I feel like running the football is their game. When you approach them defensively, how do you match up and win in the trenches against the Generals?
Yeah, it's a tall task. Some things are, a little easier said than done, if you will. But you're going to have to be gap sound. You got to match, the words I've been saying all week are violence, effort, and toughness. You got to be able to match those things and exceed those things up front if you want to win the battle of the line of scrimmage, in any game for that matter. But they play with great effort. They're extremely well coached. Coach Slusher's been there for, I think, 20 years now is what I read. He's also a hometown kid who kind of has a similar story to myself, or I should say I have a similar story to him. I suppose I should say he's been doing it longer than I have. So I think that's kind of a really cool twist on the game. But winning the battle up front in the trenches, it's going to come down to those guys playing together, being extremely gap sound. And once again, it's the violence and the effort and the toughness that you play with, and being able to do that under control, play after play after play after play. And I think Ridgewood, what they did last week of, using their offense to play keep away from to keep away from Garaway's offense, to eat the clock and to control the line of scrimmage. And, when you have a quarterback like they do in number 15, is 6'2", 200 pounds, and runs the way he does, I wouldn't blame anybody for giving that kid 32 carries.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't either. Now, I feel like your offense has been really balanced this year. I mean, your quarterback, Conley Bogard, is second leading passer in the Ohio Heritage Conference, and then you have 2 of the top 3 receivers in terms of yardage. Austin Haynes and Chris Ritchie are combined for 1,400 yards and 15 touchdowns between them. But then you also have 2 backs too that I feel like run the ball pretty effectively with Denver Caudill, Ronnie Thomas. They've combined for almost 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns. So it seems like you're pretty balanced offensively, but what is your game plan as you kind of, construct maybe your first couple of series of play calls and whatnot? Are you going to try to keep it balanced, with run pass? Do you favor the pass more? When you kind of look at Ridgewood's defense, is there a weakness that you're going to try to exploit early on?
I think when you go to game plan, you go to look at these things, you always want to take what the defense gives you, but you got to balance that out with sticking to what you're good at and your strengths. The really cool thing is we go all the way back in the summer for about the last, since I've been here, we've kind of had one main ball carrier, and a lot of years we've had a really athletic quarterback and a really good running back. And those 2 guys kind of, become the mail carriers for us, if you will. And we kind of lean on those guys a lot. Going into this season, we sat around as a staff and we looked around and we're like, We don't know if we have a guy who's going to carry the ball 400 times this year. We don't know if we have that guy. But what we do have is 4 or 5 receivers that we think can get open, catch the ball, and do a nice job on the perimeter. We have 2 or 3 tight ends that we trust to do a good job blocking and catching. And we've got 3-4 running backs, that are going to run the ball. And we also play 2 quarterbacks. Connor Ike also takes a lot of snaps for us.
Mm-hmm.
He's an athletic kid as well, too. And you start to get into the weeds of the things, and you start to look at the statistics. I believe we have 5 kids with between 40 and 70 carries. We have 2 kids with basically right around 40 catches, and then another handful that are all between like 8 and 20 catches. So when you look at that, the season kind of played out the way we thought it would from the beginning of we're going to take what the defense gives us and then go from there and build on our strengths. And we're going to play a lot of kids. We have a lot of depth from kids that can touch the ball and do things with the ball. So hopefully we can take advantage of that. And as far as being specific, towards Ridgewood, they like to play a 5-man front against a lot of the formations. Some people call it a 3-4, some people call it a 5-2 defense. Those 2 guys that stand up, over the tight ends, the TJ Watt player, I guess, is if you want to call it, if you're a Steelers fan, which I'm not, but
I'm not either.
But those type guys, you look at those guys and you say, okay, and one of them is their quarterback, number 15. Is that kid more of a defensive end, or is that kid more of, a flat defender, safety type kid? And then you kind of got to look at those players and see, like, what are their strengths? How are you going to match up? And then, what are they doing on the back end to complement, their front? And they're a very physical group. They're going to fly around. So I think we do have to be balanced because their defensive backs are very athletic and they tackle really, really well. That was one of the things I came away really impressed with watching them film is how well their defensive backs tackle and how hard they play. And that's a sign of a really well-coached football team. So we want to do some things to put some guys in some run-pass conflicts and then see how they want to play that from there. And then hopefully we can take advantage of the opposite of what they really want to take away.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the record, I'm a Cowboys fan, which is not saying much. They're having a terrible year, and it seems like they do every year. So, and I don't know who you're a fan of, but I'm not a Steelers fan by any means.
I'm a Browns fan, so,
yeah,
so I guess loyalty and some stick-to-itiveness would be high on my resume as an NFL fan.
Same here, and the Browns are not having the best of seasons either, so we're both in the same boat, I guess. But Coach, I really appreciate you taking time, 10 minutes here to talk some football, man, and hype up Week 11 of the playoffs. You've got a great team, with your Indians this year, and it's going to be a great one against Ridgewood. And so I appreciate you taking time and hopping on a podcast, man. And we're looking forward to seeing you on Friday. And best of luck to you.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Anytime we can promote the great game of high school football, I'm all in.
A pleasure to talk to Kurt Forrest. Really appreciate his time joining our show. A team that we haven't covered with Storied Rivals, so it was awesome to reach out to him and to get the Mechanicsburg side featured on the show because they have an excellent team in the Ohio Heritage Conference. And, of course, thank you to John Slusser, Ridgewood Generals as well. Set for a really good game here tonight. But before we wrap up the show, let's go through other playoff games in our coverage area because there are plenty of good ones. And we'll start in East and Northeastern Ohio. So we'll go by division from the top of your screen down. Number 11, Talmadge at number 6, Chardon, Division 3, Region 9. Number 3, Tri-Valley is hosting number 14, Carrollton in Division 3, Region 11. New Lex, a 3 seed, hosting 14 seed Canton South in Division 4, Region 15. And also in 4, Region 15 is Philo at Logan Elm, 11 versus 6. Number 5, Garaway in Division 5, Region 17. Garaway moved up a division from last year. They were Division 6 Final Four team last year, now in Division 5, hosting number 12, Lakeview. Number 7, West Muskingum, hosting number 10, Afrocentric in Division 5, Region 19, as well as Union Local, an 11 seed at number 6, Nelsonville York. Number 6, Dalton in Division 6, Region 21, hosting Valley Christian, an 11 seed. And then, of course, the game we're here at tonight, Ridgewood, Mechanicsburg, Division 6, Region 23. And then we'll go to the other side of our coverage area. Central and Western Ohio. Got a handful more games here. Division I, Region 2, we've got 3 games. Number 2, Centerville and number 15, Beaver Creek. Number 3, Westland, hosting number 14, Dublin Kaufman. And Hilliard-Davidson, a 5 seed, taking on Marysville, a 12 seed. Then in Division I, Region 3, we've got 4 games. 2 teams that we cover, Olentangy and Olentangy Orange, a 4 versus 13 seed game. Number 1, Olentangy Liberty, hosting number 16, Lancaster. Number 12, Newark, is at number 5, Upper Arlington. And number 14, Reynoldsburg, is at number 3, Gahanna. DeSales, a 5 seed in Division II, Region 7, hosting New Albany. Granville, a 6 seed, Division III, Region 11, hosting Dover. Jonathan Alder, number 9, at number 8, Bishop Reedy, Division IV, Region 15. And then Grandview Heights, an undefeated season, number 1 seed, taking on number 16, Marion Elgin, in Division VI, Region 23. So those are all the games going on in our coverage area, playoff games, round 1 of the playoffs, and all the divisions, all the teams that we cover. But if you're looking for highlights from this one, I'll be here tonight putting out video highlights with each score update as the game goes on. So make sure you're following us on X, but also just follow us on every other social media as well. Happy Halloween, by the way. Hopefully you guys had a fantastic Halloween and got some candy, took the kids trick-or-treating and everything like that. Last chance to, get some Storied Rivals Halloween merch. It's linked on our pages. Go buy something, get a hoodie, get a shirt. We just got these new hats for ourselves, not in the store, but for ourselves, the purple and green to kind of go with our Halloween stuff. So pretty cool, but if you're wanting something like that, check it out. But thanks so much for joining us for Storied Rivals Week 11 coverage of high school football, round 1 of the playoffs. We're here in Division 6 tonight, Ridgewood, Mechanicsburg, number 3 versus number 14. And follow me along throughout the evening. And we'll see you in Stadium Drive Week 12, round 2 of the playoffs, where I'm sure the playoff picture is going to start to really take shape after we see what happens tonight. But take care, everyone. Happy Halloween. And we'll see you in Week 12 for Stadium Drive. Thanks for joining us live on Facebook, X, and YouTube. Happy football, and have a wonderful weekend, everybody.